A beautiful morning to you. Welcome to the morning brief right here on Channels Television. We're here again, your coffee, your tea, whatever you want to call us. But we're here to get you started for the day. I'm Anne Nwawodu.
Well, I'm a human being. I'm not coffee. I'm not tea. I'm Jeffrey Osama.
I was wondering too.
Don't worry.
We're a perfect
I'll
day
soon
starter. Welcome to the show. I'm Kayode Kikuno. We're live for you here in Lagos.
All right, so let me say it again. Jeffrey's like the milk and the cup. I'm like the sugar and the water. Kayode, what are you like?
I'm on the morning brief. I'm Kayode on the morning.
Let me stress it. Anyway, but thank you once again for joining us on the show. But on a more serious note right now, I don't know what caught your attention you say yesterday and today, but for me, it was the case of the NLC President Joe Ajaero, an invitation by the police and the back and forth with his lawyer Femi Falana and all of that. And sometimes you begin to wonder if we really run a democratic government in Nigeria, because so many questions around things that happen, and you're wondering, where did this even start from?
Well, a lot to chew on, really, particularly if you've been following that from the very scratch. And it didn't start yesterday or when the NLC got the invite. It started from the End Bad Governance protest, the aftermath, the raid on the NLC headquarters, the police saying that, well, we're trying to get the suspected terrorists.
That was the initial one. They initially said, according to the NLC, they said, NLC said they were looking for seditious materials.
Which is why they went to the bookshop.
Exactly.
That was the first one we heard.
Right.
Then you can continue.
Then, of course, the police said, well, they were trying to, it wasn't targeted at the NLC. It was one of the tenants in the building.
Allegedly, who sponsored the End Bad Governance.
Exactly. So I was wondering, so why raid the library? Are you trying to open a book club or some sort of bookstore? But anyway, that went. And this is the latest. The NLC saying that they got an invite. And I know that there are lots of sides to this. The police is the police. Yeah. If the police invites you, the onus is on you to, of course, present yourself. But people have talked about precedences, not even one, not two, of people who have been invited either by law enforcement agencies, not necessarily the police, and they're nowhere to be found. In fact, some of them meant to appear in court, but nowhere to be found. And there were questions about, is anybody above the law? And that is what is happening right now. So people are asking, are you able to say, police, you've asked me to come on this day, but no, I cannot come on this day. I can now come, well, the day I can come is a week or a week and 2 days' time. That has been the question. Is that something that we want to now enshrine as a norm? Is anybody above the law, whether you're a politician, labor leader, or an everyday Nigerian? Mind you, if you're an everyday Nigerian and police ask you to come Tuesday, 10 a.m.
You better go.
That is if they invite you for some cases.
Right. If they don't come to drag you from your home or from your office. So that is a debate out there. But one thing is sure, if we want to have a nation that is built on laws, a nation with strong institutions, then everybody has to ensure that we strengthen those institutions either by obeying them, or if you're the one in power, by wielding your power constitutionally.
At the end of the day, even in that same letter of invitation, because they say, we're inviting you because there's an ongoing investigation that you were mentioned bordering on those allegations. And then the last paragraph say, if you don't come, we'll issue a warrant of arrest. So you want to make that situation. But that's on one hand on the NLC. My own grouse is with the NNPCL. I don't know whether the NNPCL has chosen to gaslight us. I don't know what is going on with the NNPCL, which is why we would like to extend an invitation publicly to the NNPCL spokesperson.
Not a warrant.
Yeah?
Not a warrant, just
not a warrant. There's no even threat of arrest.
All right.
So we'd like to speak with the NNPCL authority, whether it's a spokesperson, because the reason I say that is the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, came the other day and said, we're not paying subsidy. What happens is we get PMS and we bring it into the country. Federal government says, sell it at this price. We sell it, sometimes they give us the money, sometimes they don't give us the money. So what is the difference between a shortfall and a subsidy? Maybe that's the explanation the experts will explain to us. But at the end of the day, something is discounted and somebody is taking the burden. If in your statement of financial position, there's account receivable and account payable on the books of the government. So what exactly are we talking about? That's on one hand. On the other hand, somebody raised a question. The NNPC is in debt. They are owing people that supplied the crude about $6.8 billion. NNPC has said, no, it is normal to owe. It's on first come, first served basis. yes, these monies are paid. Are you owing or you're not owing? We're not talking about whether you're paying in phases. Are you owing or you're not owing? It's as simple as that. So it's like I have listened to even some of the best of minds when it comes to the NNPCL. Everybody looks to be confused what is going on with the NNPCL. So I'm asking, is NNPCL gaslighting us? So if you're not gaslighting us, come to this chair and come and explain yourself. Let's have some questions so that this confusion will be cleared once and for all. So I've given two positions. Shortfall versus subsidy. As far as you're discounting, somebody is paying, somebody is receiving, whatever. So whether it is NNPCL, the money is being paid to, or somebody else, as far as money is being paid, one form or the other, we need this explanation.
Because the confusion is actually confusing every other person too. So while there's confusion in a group, it is also affecting every other thing and every other person outside. Why are you not talking? That is what we are asking. Talk to us. Someone was saying on the group, on the show the other day, that Nigerians can understand. When you explain things, we know how to navigate and understand where you're coming from. Just help us understand. Keeping mute is when we have a problem. So I hope that all parties are listening right now and saying, okay, maybe it's time to talk to Nigerians. I mean, you owe us that. You owe us that. And again, I know Jeffrey is talking about NNPCL. Well, about the NLC, please, let us resolve this issue. We do not want another strike. Because they have already threatened that if in any way you jail him or detain.
No, detain. They're not even jail.
Okay, not jail. Well,
Let
you
him,
know what
detain
is what? Detain him. Okay, let's use detain him.
Detain. Let's use that word.
There's going to be strike. I mean, who wants that? We know what happens when there's an industrial action in this country. Everything just shuts down. So we do not want that to happen. All the parties come together, come to the negotiating table. No one deserves to be cheated. If there's something wrong, explain it. Femi Falana has already said that his client wants the details of that investigation. Tell us the details, tell him the details and what he should do. And if there's a new date for coming forward to honor the invitation by the police, then accept that date or something. Just whatever you do. We do not want strike in this country again. All right, so we have.
When they say something?
So, I'm just walking through a lot of things, and I wonder why. But you know what? It will take maybe a week to go through the whys of these issues. I mean, we don't need to be meddling with these issues. We have bigger fish to fry, guys. And,
all right.
So give us the first big fish.
Fear on the what do you call it now? Fuel scarcity.
Fuel scarcity. I mean, we have bigger fish to fry.
And NNPCL is coming to explain what I don't understand.
And what's the first big fish we're frying this morning?
Before Jeff takes us to a fuel station now, let's talk about what we have for you on the show today. We know that in the last 6 decades, Nigeria's experience has shown that having economic potentials or opportunities is not enough to generate economic prosperity and transform the country into a thriving nation. So on the morning brief today, we begin with analyzing the gaps in Nigeria's policy consistency as it continues to take its toll on investor confidence. We'll also find out the sectors most hit, how decisions are affecting the economy, and of course, possible solutions to these challenges.
And next, we turn our attention to the judgment of the Supreme Court granting financial autonomy to local governments in Nigeria. It's been over a month, really, with the recent inauguration of a 10-member interministerial committee to enforce the ruling. We speak to experts about its implementation and the importance of a seamless transition.
Well, so we will find out how this will be effective, but it looks like the federal government is not playing with anybody. This money must go to the LG.
Have you seen that committee?
I've seen the committee. The federal government
from the CBN, the Minister of Finance.
You know when they say FG means business. This is FG means business. So that's not all. Let's go to the softer side of things. He's one of the most sought after event hosts in Nigeria, a comedian who has graced several stages. Mide will be joining us on the show to discuss his journey into intriguing art of comedy, staying afloat, and his plans for the future.
All right, so that's all we have for you on the show today, and even more on the show. But be a part of this show, be a part of the conversation, as we always tell you. And check out that WhatsApp number on your screen. Remember, do not call, just send in your messages. We'll be right here going through them and reading them, because we'd like to hear from you. This is a two-way thing. It's not just us. It's about you. So please send in your messages, and don't forget to hashtag CTV Morning Brief while you do that. So we'll be right here for you to give you all of that. So
absolutely. So let's tell them again on the WhatsApp. If you're on a queue, I listened to the radio this morning. A gentleman called the radio and said he sent his boy to go buy fuel by 7 a.m. The guy came back by 3 p.m. in Lagos.
That's
guess
a
how much
job, by the way.
Yeah,
That's an 8-hour
Guess how
shift.
much the fuel they bought?
How much?
1,000 naira per liter.
So let me get this right. You wasted 8 hours. By the way, that's actually a full day's job.
Yeah.
Yes.
To buy petrol for that exorbitant price. And I'm sure he probably bought 10 liters or something, right?
I don't know.
All right. What we go through in this country anyway.
All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back to bring you our top stories. Join us again.
Welcome back, and this is still the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. Right now, we give you the top stories and stories that made headlines. We begin with what appears to be the brewing problem in labor sector as unionists, after the emergency meeting yesterday, Tuesday, August the 20th, placed members on strike notice if its national president is detained by the police. The NLC president, Mr. Joe Ajaero, is being summoned over allegations of terrorism financing, treasonable felony, and cybercrime. The police had requested that Mr. Ajaero appear for questioning at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, August the 20th, even as the NLC expressed its readiness to cooperate with the invitation and has now directed its legal team to seek a rescheduled date for that appearance.
We will honor the invitation of the Nigerian police because we are not a faceless organization, but we believe that we need an extension of time after consultation with our lawyers, because this invitation was extended to the Congress President yesterday and asked to report at the police by 10 a.m. today. So we are already working with our lawyers to look for extension of time. But this does not legitimize the charges by the Nigerian police to the Congress leadership. And secondly, we resolve that in an event our Congress President was arrested or detained at any moment, we put our appellate on red alert to mobilize our membership across the country that all workers in this country should down-tool their services. This is the resolution because, comrades, this organization belongs to all of us. Therefore, we should do everything possible to safeguard the sanctity of this organization.
Meanwhile, lawyer to the national president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Joe Ajaero, Mr. Femi Falana, has said that Mr. Ajaero will be unable to honor that invitation of the Nigeria police due to a prior engagement scheduled before the invitation was received. The police had on Monday invited him for questioning over allegations, as we told you earlier, of terrorism financing, treasonable felony, cybercrime, and other related offenses. Well, according to that invitation letter dated August 19th, which was signed by ACP Adamu Muazu on behalf of the Deputy Commissioner of Police Intelligence Response Team, the police warned that the warrant of arrest will be issued if Mr. Ajaero failed to appear for interrogation on Tuesday. However, in a letter dated August the 20th, signed by Mr. Samuel Ogala on behalf of Mr. Femi Falana, it was noted that the NLC president was unavailable and would honor that invitation on Wednesday, August the 29th this year. Mr. Falana, in a letter to the Inspector General of Police through the DCP, Mohammed Ahmad Sanusi, also requested the police to furnish him with details of the allegation of criminal conspiracy, terrorism financing, treasonable felony, subversion, and cybercrime, all charges leveled against him, his clients, Mr. Ajaero. And now we head to the courts where the hearing of the appeal filed against the federal government by a former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, at the Court of Appeal over his alleged illegal removal from office has been stalled. At the resumed hearing of the appeal filed on July the 9th, 2019, the Acting Director Civil Appeals, Mr. Tijani Ghazali, from the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, informed the court that the ministry is not in possession of the case file for the trial of the former Chief Justice of Nigeria 5 years after the conclusion of the trial. Mr. Ghazali, who's a senior advocate of Nigeria, informed the three-man panel of justices billed to hear the appeal that he needs some time to access the case files. And the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has ordered the former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello to present himself for arraignment. The appeal court also restrained the former governor from taking any further action regarding the charges against him until he has been formally arraigned. In a unanimous judgment delivered by Justice Ken Amadi, the court allowed the appeal filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission against the judgment of Honorable Justice Isa Abdullahi Jamil of the Kogi State High Court in a fundamental rights case filed by the former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello in February this year. While the court found that the appeal by Senior Advocate of Nigeria Jibrin Okutepa on behalf of the EFCC is meritorious and described as scandalous the judgment of the lower court when it held that the purpose of that case instituted at the trial court was to shield Yahaya Bello from his criminal trial. Well, in reaching its verdicts, the Court of Appeal adopted two issues raised by the respondent. The court held that the learned trial judge had the charge in FRN versus Ali Bello and Anor in his hand, but still set Yahaya Bello free under the guise of enforcing his fundamental rights. And the court also relied on the earlier decision of Justice Olubomi Oyewole in EFCC versus Yahaya Bello to reiterate that no court has the power to preclude a law enforcement agent from performing its statutory functions. While on the whole, the court then agreed that the submission of the EFCC and held that the appeal is meritorious and therefore allowed. But importantly, the court further held that in view of the provision of Section 3962 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, the respondent in this appeal, which is Alhaji Yahaya Bello, is hereby ordered to appear for his arraignment. Well, we'll stay with the courts, and the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has dismissed the appeal filed by the Edo State House of Assembly against the reinstated Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shuaibu, on the ground that the appeal amounts to a waste of time and abuse of court process. In a unanimous decision of the court, the three-man panel, presided over by Justice Aki Abubakar, dismissed this appeal against Mr. Shuaibu, who was recently reinstated as the Deputy Governor of Edo State. Well, away from the courts now, a 10-member interministerial committee has been inaugurated to enforce the Supreme Court judgment granting financial autonomy to local governments in Nigeria. That inauguration was led by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, who was represented by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun. The committee, chaired by the SGF, comprises representatives from key ministries, agencies, and stakeholders. That committee is tasked with ensuring that local governments operate independently and effectively without interference from state governments. The committee's formation follows the Supreme Court's ruling delivered on July the 11th this year, which granted financial autonomy to local governments. Let's talk politics now. Elder statesman Chief Edwin Clark has accused the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike of engaging in anti-party activities harmful to the People's Democratic Party, the PDP. While he alleged that the former Rivers State Governor's conduct has undermined the party's interests and values, he then calls for the removal for the well-being of the PDP. Chief Clark warns that the PDP leadership be aware of what he says are Mr. Wike's intentions, his actions, which can be detrimental to the party's survival. Meanwhile, the governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, has reaffirmed his membership of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, putting to rest months of speculations that he's planning to dump the party. Addressing the leadership of members of the PDP Board of Trustees who visited him at the Government House in Port Harcourt, Rivers State capital, Governor Fubara says that he doubted his membership of the PDP, but with the visit by the BOT, and which has offered some conviction, that he is still recognized as a PDP member.
I know that a lot of information are flying here and there, but I know that whatever I've said anywhere, I have still maintained it. What I say is, what I've said in Abuja is the same thing I say in Port Harcourt. If I've had any encounter with anybody in Lagos, I don't think my story has changed. But so far, what is important this afternoon is that we are still members of the party, and the owners of the party have visited us. So for those people outside who are, would I say, carrying all sort of rumors and propaganda, at least this visit will rest those propagandas and to tell the world that we are and we still remain members of the People's Democracy.
And away from politics, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Mr. Ahmed Dangawa, has inaugurated a joint steering committee to develop a blueprint for improving access to housing data in the country. At the inauguration in Abuja, Mr. Dangawa outlined the committee's objectives, which include establishing a national housing data center, creating a framework for data collection and distribution, and of course, setting up a mortgage exchange. He asked the committee members to approach their task with seriousness, warning that the government will not tolerate any failure to meet their mandate. The minister emphasized the reliable data is essential for understanding housing challenges, allocating resources effectively, and prioritizing markets. Now, this committee includes representatives from the public and the private sector. To security matters now, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has inaugurated 169 operatives of the Special Intervention Squad. The inauguration is holding after 8 weeks of rigorous training organized by the Nigeria Police in collaboration with the United States Embassy at the Police Training College in Ende, Nasarawa State. We turn our attention to business stories now. Diaspora remittances into the country reached the highest level ever last month as it climbed by 130% year on year to 553 million within the period. And that's according to data coming from the Central Bank of Nigeria. In a statement released by the financial market regulator, the figure represents the highest monthly total inflows on record. It has been attributed to ongoing efforts to exchange forex liquidity and strengthening public confidence in the foreign exchange market. These measures include granting licenses to new international money transfer operators, enabling them timely access to naira liquidity, and implementing a willing buyer-seller model in the market. The body of a man recovered near the Bayesian yacht is believed to be that of a Canadian Antiguan chief, Ricardo Thomas. He has been working on the boat and was one of the 22 people aboard the British luxury yacht, which sank off Sicily during a violent storm. That incident happened on Monday. Well, 6 people are still missing, including Morgan Stanley International Chairman Jonathan Bloomer, his wife Judy, British tech tycoon Mike Lynch, and jewelry designer Neda Morvillo. And away from that, preparations at the Paralympic Village for the upcoming Paris Games are in full swing as the village is now set to open its doors for the arrival of the participating athletes from August the 28th. While some athletes are already on site, but the official opening of that village, already in use during the Olympics, has been redesigned to accommodate all types of disabilities. Paris will welcome more than 4,400 Paralympic athletes from 171 countries. And we definitely wish all the Paralympians the very best, as we wished the other ones when they were at the Olympics 2024. But now I invite Kayode Okikelu, who will be joining me. You've been talking a lot about different topics, and we're here to, of course, let everyone know what you've been talking about, your reactions, and thank you always for sending them in.
Absolutely, and of course, all eyes on the Paralympics athletes. At least if we didn't get a medal from the Olympics, we should get some.
Happen.
No, of course, they always deliver, and that's why
Yes.
it's important to keep supporting them. But let's get into your comment. Of course, you're starting off from where we started off this morning, and that's the back and forth, if we could call it that, between the police and the NLC president, Joe Ajaero. A new date for the interview, for the meet,
invitation
has been fixed by Mr. Ajaero's lawyer, Femi Falana. That's the 29th. But what have you been saying? Well, take a look at this first user. Is this Johnson? Added to the fact that NLC says they will go on strike if Mr. Ajaero is detained. So is this Johnson? Says the statement from the NLC reflects a significant tension between labor unions and the government. And I think this is a norm. You always have labor unions and governments at loggerheads. But it goes on to say the threat of a strike underscores the NLC's commitment to protecting its members and advocating for their rights. So that's one way to look at it, Anne.
Now, Idofoy says that we want a society, but we prefer to behave lawless. We shut the economy because the police invite you. When did NLC headquarters become a law on its own? If you are found guilty of a crime, you face it. If you are arrested unlawfully, you go to court.
That's another way to look at it. Let's see the third user on this one, and that's Omololani. I hope I got that right. But this is what you say. Says, does that mean that whether he's guilty or not, he's above the law of the country? This is what this user has to say, Omololani.
Well, Uram 4 says that let him defend himself. Why is NLC trying to defend him even before interrogation? All right, I see there are divided views here. While some support this, some don't.
But we'll see how this plays out. So the next move is of the police. The labor unions have made their move. It's like a game of chess. But some say we don't even have to do this back and forth anyway. The laws are clear. So we'll see what the police has to say and what move they will make after this one. But let's move on. And
yes, the presidency unveiling the new Airbus A330 purchased under President Bola Tinubu. That's the next one, and your reactions from it is coming. The first one is coming from Wana Assam, who says that I'm still wondering what happened to the one he's been using. President Tinubu asks Nigerians every day to endure and be patient while he changes presidential jets and vehicles every month. Why must we subsidize the poor to enjoy luxury?
So obviously this is not going away anytime soon, particularly now that there's been another announcement about the delegation to the next COP meeting, saying the government wants to cut 10 billion naira. People are thinking, wait a minute, so we're going to spend up to 10 billion naira or more
in the first place?
In the first place. So this next user, Sanusi Altin, says, with the current state of our nation's economy, it is questionable for the president to purchase a 150 billion naira aircraft. Guess what? They said that the original valuation for the aircraft was $600 million, and Nigeria offered $100 million. So some are saying, well, yes, it's expensive, but it's a good buy. It's better than $600 million. Okay. This user goes on to say this decision can be considered financially reckless due to the following reasons. Take a look at them. Hunger and poverty. 2, insecurity. 3, opportunity cost. And I think this user is saying by opportunity cost, that money could have been used for something else. But the jury is out there.
Profitable.
The jury is out there.
All right. Goodwill Oyege says that congratulations to you guys on the new whip. Woo woo. We got used bags of rice. Celebrate them. Okay, give us location. Who's going to give location this time?
Trust Nigerians, always finding that humor. If you're asking for location, we can tell you for sure, at least from what we heard last, that aircraft is in France.
Okay.
It traveled from Abuja to Nice, and the president is expected to be in Paris. So in terms of location...
Maybe it's Paris you should go.
Maybe it's Paris you should go to. King Season is the next user on this one, saying, what's the use of the Airbus by the president? Is he trying to import and export our natural resources? Because I don't know why president would have an Airbus. So Airbus is wide body.
Yes.
So again, the jury is out there. And that's why it's important to maybe communicate more. And if there are areas you fell short, absolutely take the L and move on. People are saying, well, the one that the president stopped using is said to be, 19 years old, while this one was first delivered in 2009, just 4 years apart. And then they compare it to the U.S. president, saying the U.S. president's aircraft is even much older. But then configuration is another issue. Some of these technologies, and maintenance, thank you very much. Some of these technologies are obviously not around here, but the government has to definitely defend the spending to Nigeria.
All right, so let's take the next topic that you've been talking about on Philip Shuaibu, who's the reinstated Edo State Deputy Governor, and the appeal court rulings. Your reactions to that? The first is coming from Amos Lincoln, who says that this matter will ultimately be settled once and for all at the Supreme Court. The House of Assembly will definitely appeal the judgment of the Court of Appeal favoring Shuaibu. Well,
and but some say we didn't have to get to this point now in the first place. So we sort of do the wrong things and then we keep doing things to...
It's a kind of damage control at the end of the day.
China analyst is next saying, Nigerian politicians and politicking. That's how this user starts. In all these, is it not the common man that is denied the true value of governance? Thank you, the appeal court, by the way, this user says.
All right, Benjamin Kalu says that the way it turned out the last time surprised everyone. Is this still talking about the Edo?
Oh yeah, this is about Benjamin Kalu. Recall the statement he made about Labour Party in Abia State not doing more than one term and the APC will take power. Well, a lot of people are still talking about that.
Yeah, Iberi Obasi says that it's the way it turned out the last time surprised everyone. Of course, remember that God will do it again. Even the rigging and everything will not work. I trust Abia people, it will shock you.
Okay, this is 2024, by the way. So you're wondering, what are we talking about? Well, politicians are always focused on election, sometimes on governance. Who knows? This next user, Shayofumi Mudugwe, says, this shows that these people purposely made the state and Nigeria as a whole remain poor and epileptic. Okay, those are very big ones, I must say. So they can continue to live large on the commonwealth of the nation. So this user says essentially that he's challenging the gods, and we'll see how that plays out.
We'll take this next one from Kingmin Esolo, who says that, so this political thing is no longer with the purpose of serving the people, but an agreement between some groups of people. Abians, please do the needful and kick this out of any political post he's currently exploiting come the next election.
I'm sure the Deputy Speaker is maybe penning a rejoinder, seeing the reactions to this one. Finally, we'll take this one from Samuel Motayo, saying, only God knows where that audacity is coming from. Well,
it says that the APC have mind and talks about without any apology.
Reminds me of what PDP had said one time, and that they were going to rule this country for years,
endlessly.
Not just endlessly, but we've seen what has happened. And I think that's a reminder that sovereignty belongs to the people. Exactly. So we'll see how this plays out. If this is just political talk, you know, for boxing matches, just before they talk
and you
big
and
all,
and
then during the match, their face is all bloodied and mouth is bloody. So maybe this is political talk, but obviously the people need to engage governance.
Very true. I mean, someone always says that political office spaces are usually vacant, but you see, the Nigerian space, the space of the citizen, is never vacant. So you have the power to change things. When you realize that you have that power, then maybe things will begin to be different in this country.
So here's what we'll do. We'll keep getting your messages, hashtag CTV Morning Brief, or go on WhatsApp, sending those comments about issues in the country and what we'll discuss. But we'll go on a break now, right?
Yes, so take a very short break, but don't move a muscle, because we'll definitely be right here back on the Morning Brief. And stay with us.
I have to move though.
No.
I have to move a muscle. Well, it's a conversation that continues to hog the headlines, and it really traverses different levels of government in this country, from state to federal. Believe it or not, this is a function of government policies, the consistency or otherwise of it. What am I talking about? We'll take for one, the 3 aircrafts that have been seized by a French court as a result of a Chinese firm, essentially putting up a case before the court and blaming the state government of Ogun State of Renegade on contractual agreements, and then that spiraled into the seizure of Nigeria's presidential aircraft. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And then you look around too and you see some of the policy inconsistencies in terms of, is it subsidy? Is it under recoveries? Is it shortfalls? What do you call it? And you wonder what exactly is playing out here. And of course, that trickles down to all of the economic indices that we see around there and investor confidence. So how do we get around this? Well, we have joining us this morning 2 gentlemen who are well placed to give us different perspectives on this. Mr. Mide Yusuf is an economist, CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, CPP, also PhD holder. You're welcome to the program, Dr. Yusuf, as well as Professor Damilola Olawi, the senior advocate of Nigeria, a jurist, professor of law.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and Deputy Vice Chancellor of Afeba Balola University at Ado-Ekiti. Prof, you're welcome to the program as well.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Prof, because the issue of the presidential jet is still very much in contention. In fact, we understand that the French court had to release our latest presidential jet, the A330, for our president to travel to France, and then we have 2 still in custody. When you look at this agreement, particularly the fact that it dates back previous governments at the state level, and now it is affecting the operations of a sovereign state, a federal government. What do you see, Prof?
Thank you very much. I mean, the events show just one thing. It shows lack of coherence in that is required in the federal state. Countries that practice federalism like ours have a way of ensuring that federal, state, and local government levels are, cross-checking what they are doing to ensure coherence and coordination. And so when you have such a rather embarrassing scenario that we find ourselves in, it shows that that coherence is lacking. Under international law, the function of signing treaties is with the federal government. There is no doubt about that. In fact, international law is the law of nations. So it's only states, nations, federal governments that are recognized at the international level. But what you have also in federal states is that if subnationals were to be willing to sign an international treaty, then the federal government has to be carried along. In fact, the federal government must be informed, and such a treaty must be concluded with the approval, express approval and consent of the federal government. So when you don't have that, it simply shows that the 3 levels of government are either not in harmony, are not coordinating as they should under law, or that there is an aspect of a collapse of federalism. And whichever way you look at it, it's not good for Nigeria.
So, Dr. Mide Yusuf, let me come to you now. He's given us the legal perspective, and I think it's great to understand how these things work out. So, I don't know if the federal government was the guarantor in some sense in this particular treaty, but there's also the policy angle of things, investor confidence. Whether or not the investor is being transparent and forthright is another conversation which we hope to explore as well. So what do you see in terms of investor confidence, the policies of government, and the coherence which Prof talked about? Dr. Yusuf.
Yes. First of all, this is not even so much of a policy issue. I think it is more about the impunity around the issues of sanctity of contracts. And I must tell you, even domestically, a lot of investors have suffered from this impunity of not respecting the sanctity of contracts. Let me just give you a few examples. Remember the case of the Virgin Nigeria. That is Richard Branson in 2004. Now, he was invited by the then regime of President Obasanjo to come and promote our flag carrier. The man came, he invested a lot, only for the following administration to the next administration to come and just completely threw the man out of the window. You know, he made a lot of investment on Virgin Nigeria. Then they said the contract was this, the contract was not okay. The lounge, the Virgin Nigeria lounge at the Murtala Mohammed Airport was practically just boggled and the staff were thrown out. Then just last year, December 2023, the Minister of Works said that he has an outstanding payment for contractors of about 1.5 trillion naira. These are flagrant violations of contracts. Many contractors have gone completely bankrupt because they entered the two government contracts. The contract terms are clear, but most times these things are not respected. Also recall the case of Courtney, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. There was a contract that was supposed to be concessioning. Somewhere along the line, some people said the quality of the contract was not okay and all of that. That case is still in court. We are talking about something of over close to 10 years or more. The same thing with MM2, with the same by Courtney. There's a concession agreement. No matter what we say, MM2 is still one of it's even the best terminal we have domestically now. So a private went through. As I'm speaking to you, the case is still in court. The bank that financed the project, many of them have burnt their fingers. Look at the Federal Secretariat Ikoyi. It was supposed to be a PPP arrangement. The thing had been stuck. Because after one administration, another administration will come and say that this contract is this, and they just jettison it. So the issue is that we need to be more diligent, just as the SAN had said, in entering into contractual agreements to ensure the quality of the contract is sound. And if any administration wants to disengage from a contract, there should be procedures. I've seen ministers just go to sites, construction sites, and said, this contract is hereby terminated. Would that even give due reference to the terms of the contract? A lot of businesses have suffered as a result of this. Look at the Lekki Expressway. It started with a concession, and at some point, the whole thing, went bad. And here's an economy that needs private sector capital. We need to promote the concept of public-private partnership.
Yes,
we need private sector expertise.
Dr. Mide, which brings us to my next...
We have this kind of confidence crisis.
Yes, let's move on from this now. We know that one missing aspect in Nigeria's journey has always been policy coordination and government trying to invite and promote investors' confidence. But as someone in that sector, as someone who has always been an advocate of promoting private enterprises, how has these policies over the years directly affected private sectors?
No, it has affected private sector very, very badly. Very, very badly. Now we are talking about issues of contract. We have not talked about issues of regulation that are inconsistent. You are operating a business, you set up a business sometimes running into billions of naira under a particular policy regime, under a particular regulatory regime. 6 months, 1 year into the life of that investment, the policy changes without due regard to the implication for those who have invested in the sector. Most times, these policies take immediate effect. I've seen a major investor that took billions of naira in loan, these intervention funds, by the central bank at that time.
All right, let's take it to Prof. Prof, let's bring you in on this one because. All right, Dr. Yusuf, let's take it to Prof. Prof, on this particular one, it appears that we have to go beyond. I know you're a lawyer, and the law is what you stand for, but it appears sometimes that legislation is not just enough. So I can go through some of the things that have happened. Dr. Muda had mentioned Virgin. I know that an IOC had met with the president last December with promises of making about $6 billion investment. But 5 months, 6 months down the line, at a particular forum in Kigali, they had chosen to move to Angola. And the central word was the investment environment, that debates are ever open-ended. Nothing is closed. Legislation here and there, inconsistency. The NNPCL, for instance, we have been complaining about its opaqueness, and we're looking for investors. Dangote Refinery, Aliko Dangote is literally fighting like I've never seen him fight so much for his life like he's fought in the last few weeks since he decided to invest in that $19 or $20 billion refinery in the country, which is one of the top 10 biggest refineries in the world. At the end of the day, my question to you, Prof, is what other form of legislation can we now start to put in place so that policymakers will respect policy and be consistent as much as possible, because we're looking for investment. We haven't gotten the kind of investment we're looking for. And this is what is playing out already in our country.
Well, in fact, it's a very important question, and I should say that our problem in Nigeria is never about laws. We have laws. We have, in fact, maybe too many of them, because in the business sector, the more regulation you have, the more potential for lack of coordination and coherence. Now, what we've seen play out here is that one of the key determinants of investment flow is legal and regulatory clarity and certainty, which we don't have. And that is often tied to the fact that policies change. One government comes in, tries this, and the other comes in and does not maintain that stability that is needed to drive market flow. So it's not about law, it's about lack of political will to implement existing laws. For example, in Nigeria, we already have the Investment Promotion Commission. It is their responsibility to be the one-stop shop for investments. They are there, and there is no way that the law establishing them requires that even any treaty, any foreign agreement should be registered with them. So there is no way there will be an agreement between a Chinese company and a subnational, and the Investment Promotion Commission is not part of it. The Investment Promotion Commission is a federal agency, so they should be part of it. In fact, they should be the ones talking about this agreement and what they know about it. But when you have a situation whereby many of the existing bodies that should play this role are either not empowered to do so, or they are sidelined due to lack of political will, then you have this sort of problems. So let us go back to implementing existing laws. Let us go back to ensuring that our agencies are supported, are funded, and they are even provided the capacity to do their work without political interference. This is what serious countries do, those that are really, really keen to attract investors. Another thing is that when you have, in the business world, it is normal that when you are doing an agreement, you want to go with the strong person. And in the business world, that's why you see every agreement, you see a company wanting to have parent company guarantee, because they know that if there is a problem, the parent company is bigger than the subsidiary, so they can come and save the day. And in the same thing in international law, you see that many business folks want to deal with the federal government because they know that, well, if the subnationals fail, at least the federal government can step in. Now, what other countries do is to have a law or a provision that says, that gives indemnity to the federal government, to say that the federal government is indemnified of any liability that comes from any negotiation or deal that a subnational is trying to do. Do we have such indemnity provision? It's obvious we don't. And I'm very worried because now we are talking about local government autonomy. This is only going to get worse because a local government in Igbajo in Osun State can indeed go and sign a treaty with China or India, and then the federal government will be responsible for that. So we need these indemnity provisions or legislation that will make it clear to everyone that the federal government is indemnified of any transaction that the subnational is entering into, unless the federal government signs it or the federal government is carried along and is a party to it. And by federal government, we mean this will include agencies like the Investment Promotion Commission, allowing them to be part of such negotiations. Also, the third aspect is to look at capacity as well. Who negotiates international deals? It should be international lawyers. And when you have a situation whereby those that have no knowledge at all of international law are negotiating landmark international agreements, then they are opening the country up for international embarrassment, such as the one we are seeing right now.
Oh dear. I just pictured for a moment, the local government autonomy and the possibilities you mentioned. But isn't there a provision, or aren't there? You said that there are statutes already in place. So you cannot drag the federal government in without their consent, right? Even if you're a local government, you can't sign without the consent of the federal government. Perhaps you might want to clear that part.
Yes. In international law, it is about states. Now, this transaction that went wrong, they are, going under the key argument they are making is that, well, Nigeria has an a bilateral investment treaty with China. And under that treaty, Nigeria said it will protect every Chinese investment. That's fine. But this particular investment, is the federal government aware of it? So, those are questions that need answers. Is the federal government aware of it? Is the federal government privy to the contract? Was the federal government involved in the negotiation? Because you cannot just take an umbrella treaty and say, I'm going to protect every investment of China. And then you cannot then say that includes an investment that I'm not even aware of, or that I was not part of the negotiation, or I was not part of the signing. So for every general rule, there's an exception. And the exception in this case is that a subnational does not have the authority to bind the federal government when the federal government has not given a consent to what they are doing. That's number one. And the second part is that if there, Nigeria can then make the case that, well, this deal in the first place is against our public policy, because our constitution makes it clear that it is the federal government that is responsible for foreign affairs and foreign deals, foreign transactions. And if it is against our public policy, then it is going to be irresponsible for any other country of the world to be trying to enforce such a contract that is against our public policy. Those are the key issues that I think Nigeria must, maintain its position on. Our constitution is clear. Issues of foreign affairs are within the purview of the federal government. And if a subnational is doing what is outside of its core purview and responsibility, it's against our public policy. And the federal government should not be held responsible for an act that is against our public policy. And international law, we have even reciprocity. A country that is trying to do something or give effect to something that is against our public policy, then, of course, it will be undiplomatic of them. And Nigeria has a right to also review its diplomatic relationships or relations with such a country.
Dr. Mide Yusuf, let's come to you on this one. And we know the figures on Nigeria's headline inflation right now. We're not even promised of what the next figure will be. We're not sure if it's going to go down, but analysts have said it might even remain or go up, which means that this is not ending anytime soon. When we talk about policy reforms and we talk about the new things that have been introduced by the government, for example, import levies removed on essential items, raising the minimum wage, and some of the things that the government, which we commend them, that they have put in. But when you weigh what is being implemented and what is being decided by parties and what is actually going on, that's the reality of Nigerians as a country and what they're going through. Do you think that the government is doing enough to balance these things in terms of the reform and the new policies that they are taking at the moment?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. But before I answer it, let me just amplify a little on this very important issue that we are discussing. Now, it is extremely very important that as much as it's important that we worry about international agreements, respect for contractual agreements with foreign investors, we should also worry about the damage that has been done to domestic investors. Because, This is across all levels of government, whether it is federal, whether it is state, whether it is local government. The rate at which contracts are flouted, are breached, are completely abandoned, especially from one administration to the other. It matters worse. The justice delivery system is not helping matters. Because if you suffer breaches of contract and you go to court, you'll be there till eternity. So we need reforms around all of these things in order to show up investors' confidence. The government books are full of judgment debts that have not been paid. So these things are very, very frustrating for investors. And I think we need to address it both internationally and locally. We have some private sector investors who will never touch the government contracts with a long pole because of their experience. And we need to bring the private sector on board when it comes to things like this. So we need to clean up this space properly to make the private sector, the contractors, have confidence in government contractual agreements. We need that discipline to return. Now, back to your question about reforms, about implementation. I think what is important in all of this, the government has made some very, very good pronouncements around reforms. The principles are good. The government is trying to fix some fundamental distortions in the economy. That is fine. But I worry about the lag between what the government says and the speed of implementation. So the bureaucracy needs to be up and doing. This is not a time for things to be too slow. I mean, look at all the pronouncements, intervention and things that the government has announced to address the issue of cost of living. As I'm speaking to you, the implementation is yet to effectively take off. Almost over a month after pronouncements. The president even addressed the nation July last year on the impact of subsidy on the citizens and the fact that he was going to do something very urgently about it. So we need to bridge that gap. The policy pronouncements are good, but the implementation lag, the lag between pronouncements and implementation is something that we need to deal with. Secondly, is the significance of stakeholder engagement. The policymakers cannot understand the economy better than those who are operating the economy. I'm not saying that they should accept everything that the private sector says, because there is a narrative that where the private sector are just always after profit and they are being selfish. But if the government is looking at a bigger picture, you know that the private sector is contributing a lot to the growth of the economy beyond the profit that they are making. They are the one creating jobs, they are the one creating the tax revenue and all of that. So stakeholder consultation is key before we take any major policy decision, so that we have the buy-in of the stakeholders in the economy. We have the opportunity of enriching the quality of those policies. So those things are very important because we are in a democracy. And as much as possible, we should democratize the policy environment so that we don't have policies that are completely misaligned with what the investors are expecting. So that will be my response to your question.
All right, Doctor, just before we get to Prof, on this particular one, let's zoom into the oil and gas sector. Correct me if I'm wrong, understand about almost 10 years there has not been exploration. We talked about the IOC that left for Angola because of our climate and business climate. And then we've seen all kinds of divestment to go deep offshore. And then when we come to the NNPCL, which is where I want to speak to, the issue of the NNPCL I want you to address, because it's almost like some people have to say it's like a deliberate, orchestrated, coordinated chaos that sometimes is so vague we're trying to understand what is going on. On one hand, there is the issue of posting 3.3 trillion naira, but when we look at gearing ratio, we have a lot of questions when we probe the numbers to the letter. And we're looking at investors coming in by the time it is properly IPO'd at the end of the day. So if this opaqueness is really a challenge that even experts are finding it hard to explain what is going on. What does that do to potential investors at the end of the day?
Well, it is a sad commentary that we have not managed our oil and gas sector properly. The governance has been terrible over close to 2 decades. And that is what has brought our economy to the point we are today. I mean, take the case of the refineries. How can we, for goodness sake, an oil-producing country, for almost 10 years, our refineries have not worked? I mean, it is unpardonable. And look at the macroeconomic problems that all this massive importation of petroleum products has created for the country, affecting everybody. So the governance space around the oil and gas sector is one of the biggest problems we have in this economy. And it's because there's too much of prioritization of self-interest over national interest. Oil blocks are being given to people who have no idea about petroleum sector. And this has been going on for years. It's a major platform for patronage. So it's a very big problem which we have been grappling with for the past 10 to 20 years, but it's never too late to correct. So what I think should happen is that we should decouple the oil and gas sector from the bureaucracy,
right,
and from the political class. I think that, for me, is the starting point. Because for as long as we create a window for politicians to begin to get involved in the management, in the appointment, and all of that, this sector will not fly. And unfortunately, it is a sector that should give us that leverage to be able to develop other sectors.
All right.
In terms of the foreign exchange, in terms of the revenue. That is why we have lost so many investors in that sector. We have the insecurity problem. There's so much impunity. People are stealing the crude. Then we have the policy problem. It took us almost 15 years to be able to come up with the Petroleum Industry Act.
All right, Dr.
Just because some people are dilly-dallying and making some money from the whole process.
Right. And this is a message or conversation that will really hit home for Nigerians right now. Because some of them are watching right now from queues at filling stations, some in traffic caused by queues. Some are at home because they don't have petrol to go outside, so they're stuck at home. Prof, let me come to you as we begin to wind down quickly. This is a sector you know too well. The petroleum industry, the oil and gas sector, you know this sector too well. And we're not the only ones that have been blessed with this abundant resource. Yet, we're like the only ones suffering in spite of the plenty, in spite of the laws. He just talked about the PIA. I don't know if there's any other country in the world blessed with this kind of resources that is at this point right now. NNPC Limited saying they're not paying subsidy, not doing under recoveries, but they are paying shortfall. So they're selling half the price. If that is not subsidy, I wonder what subsidy is. Sell crude in Naira. There was a lot of back and forth. Well, it's meant to start in a few months, but still the operationalization has been a challenge. You look at this from a different angle, definitely. If you are to suggest one thing that will maybe fix our challenges to some extent, what will that thing be, Prof, as we wind down?
Well, you asked for one. I'll give 2 or 3.
Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. Of course, I think Dr. Yusuf has also mentioned the need for that policy consistency and coherence in which when you start a policy, you should commit to it and see it through. And the Petroleum Industry Act is there now. Are we implementing it fully? The answer to me is no. So a lack of committed implementation of the existing laws and policies, a reversal, 1 step forward, 7 steps backward, that exactly is what has led us to a situation whereby investors are uncertain about what is going on in the oil and gas sector. Of course, another big issue is the need for transparency and accountability. You know, we should know, is there subsidy or not? We should know if there is still subsidy, how much is going into it. There should be a transparent release of this information. And this is a message that we have been emphasizing. Having the Petroleum Industry Act without implementing it with full transparency and accountability will lead us to the same result. So there is a need to ensure that NNPC is indeed giving full release and accountability for its for its operations, for its activities. In many climes, we should be able to get this information just by a single click on their website, but we don't see this here. And that is leading to that opaqueness in which people are really not sure about policy direction. And when people are not sure, investors are not sure as well. And nobody wants to invest in an environment whereby they are not certain what will happen in the next 3 or 4 years. So there is a need for that transparency and accountability by all stakeholders in the NNPC. Let us get accurate information on what is happening, on what is coming in, what is going out. This should be available readily for anyone to see.
All right. Prof, quickly, definitions. It says we're not paying subsidy, but we're doing shortfall. You're a legal person. You know about definitions well. Is that subsidy as well if we're getting it for half price? But it says that money is not exchanging hands to any marketer, but it's between government and NNPC Limited. Is that subsidy, Prof?
It's a form of subsidy. It's what I would describe as a qualified subsidy. That is subsidy that is implemented in another format, different from how it was implemented before. Because in a market whereby there is no subsidy or shortfall, as it is now called, it should simply mean that the government is not paying anything at all for the commodity. It comes in, and the market forces determine the price, and it goes that way. And when the president said subsidy is gone, I think subsidy includes shortfall as well, and shortfall and subsidy should be gone.
Yeah, Prof, just 1 second. So for clarity, since you're here, let's make the most out of it. So if the federal government has not defrayed dividends so that they can cover for subsidy, what are we really saying here?
We are simply saying that the federal government is still paying some money for this commodity, which is subsidy. Right?
There you go.
It is still subsidy.
So you said qualified subsidy. So we'll see how that plays out in the coming days. Professor Damilola Olaoyi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. By the way, youngest academic to attain that so far. I don't know if that has changed, Prof. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time on the program. As well as Dr. Muda Yusuf, economist, CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, CPP. Thank you for always, Dr. Yusuf.
Thank you very much.
Well, we take a break at this moment, but as it is with a proper breakfast, the table is still full. So what do we have next for you? You have to wait to find out. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's now talk local government autonomy. On one hand, the state governors, I clearly heard the Kwara State governor, who is the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, say, look, it's a good thing, it's like one burden off our shoulder. But the federal government appears to have a different version of the same event, saying, you're a chokehold on the neck of the local government. We're ready to go as far as we can go to get that chokehold off. First, they went to court. They won. And now they set up a 10-man committee comprising of all the stakeholders involved to ensure that indeed this autonomy works. So there's a period of about 3 months or so for all the details to be worked out together. But where will this lead us now that the local governments are approaching this full-scale autonomy? We've been joined in the program to explore the conversation by the National Coordinator of Democracy Vanguard, Governance Policy, Public Policy and Development Consultant, Mr. John Mutu. Mr. Mutu, thank you for coming on the program. If you can hear me, Mr.
so much
Mutu,
for having me. Good morning.
Absolutely. So let's begin with what you expect to happen in the coming days. It appears the federal government apparently means business with the way they are going about this local government autonomy. But people have raised concern about the state governors or state government still may find a way around it to put the chokehold that the federal government says is going to be lifted off the neck of this local government. What's your interpretation of what is playing out?
Yes, thank you so much. I think it's expected. The Supreme Court has given its judgment, and the federal government is expected to ensure that the judgment is complied with. I think what we are seeing are administrative procedures that are needed to be put in place to ensure that that judgment is enforced. Of course, the state government also definitely will want to ensure that at least there is seamless implementation of the judgment. They've asked questions. They've also raised their concerns. They've raised their fears. So I'm sure this platform that has been set up by the president will provide the enabling environment for them to have that conversation. So I see a lot of action. I see a lot of engagement within the next few days. But I must congratulate Mr. President for this bold move.
Right. So, well, you call it a bold move. Some say it was there in the Constitution anyway, but that speaks to the kinds of institutions we have, the kinds of people we have in governance, whether or not they're people who indeed abide by that oath that they saw with the Constitution. So that's the conversation for another day. But this is where we're going to now. So let's just tackle it head on. We've heard suggestions like, okay, maybe the federal government might need to put this on hold for some time for state governments to acclimatize. I don't know what that means, but maybe they can work things out and implement it much later in the year. Now, that's one thing. The second one is the autonomy may be granted, but some would willfully yield it to the state governors that, yes, as a sign of respect, take this autonomy. We don't want it. Help us to use it. The third part of this is just how much powers then will this committee have in terms of wielding it over the states, the subnational states and the local government? If we're saying autonomy, then allow this thing to play out. So isn't this infringing on that autonomy that you're fighting for? And I'm talking about the committee, the 10-man committee that was just unveiled yesterday. Do you think this infringes on the autonomy that we're fighting for in the first place?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think there are a few issues. The Supreme Court judgment is clear. The first is that only democratically elected local government officials should manage the affairs of local government as enshrined in the Constitution. And the second one is a consequential order. If they pay directly, monies meant for local government should be paid to them directly. Those two issues, one is a condition, any state that refuses to conduct local government elections, it means that one of the things the federal government will be doing, as mandated by the Supreme Court, is to ensure that those monies meant for those states or those local governments in those states are not released. But the question is, are the necessary administrative mechanisms available on ground at the moment to ensure, because the Supreme Court just said it should take place immediately. But for instance, that means that each of those local governments must set up their own statutory accounts, and set up the necessary mechanism for them to be able to draw funds directly from the federation account directly. So those systems, those mechanisms need to be put in place. Secondly, some people have also asked, each month people gather at the FAC meetings to share resources. Who are those that will be attending? Before now, we used to have all the accountant generals of the states, 36 states, attending those meetings to look at the records, to look at what has been raised, and based on what, and now maybe share those resources. Now that local governments are now going to be participants, are we expecting all the representatives of the local government to come to Abuja to participate at that meetings, or are they going to be represented? If they are going to be represented, who will represent them? These are all issues that they still need to be worked at, and that is why that negotiation for time to allow for those, internal processes to be put in place was asked for. And I think 3 months is not too much. 3 months is reasonable for all those issues to be put in place. But beyond that, there are also other issues that the state governments have asked, responsibilities, and also ensuring that this judgment does not create crisis in their various states. And maybe so what the committee will be doing is, and I know that the representatives of the Governors Forum is there, the representative of Algon is also in that committee. They will look at the concerns of the governors, they will look at the concerns, the issues that have arisen, they will look at the implications and collectively agree on a way. So for me, it's more or less a problem solving approach that the presidents are taking to make sure that all hands are on deck and everybody is brought in to ensure that there is seamless implementation. I expect the governors and the state governments to celebrate that. And it gives them an opportunity to also raise their concerns if there are more.
All right, Mr. Mutu, let's talk about the link between financial autonomy of local government and rural development. We know that there has to be a difference this time. So it's not like before the state government or the rural people in the rural areas will say, oh, the state government just comes, maybe does campaign, and then they forget us. But now that this money will be getting to the local government, you've already said when you were answering that question about you do not think that these local governments, especially workers there, are not ready because there are certain things that have not been put in place. So maybe the 3 months time would allow that space for things to be put in place. But also talking about the readiness of these local government workers, knowing the work that has been cut out for them. How do you think there will be synergy so that the state government and the local government, there's no crisis? Because at the end of the day, how will this be achieved to ensure that there is no fight in all of this?
Thank you so much. I don't envisage a fight. After all, before now, local governments, all of them have their own staff. They've been drawing salaries, they've been drawing resources that with limited work to do. So what I see is that now that financial autonomy has been granted, and within this 3-month window, those administrative issues and those systems and processes will have been put in place for them to take this forward. But there are more fundamental issues that we need to focus on, and I mentioned it the last time I was here. One of them, and concerns that have been raised, is the issue of primary education. Who is responsible for primary education in this country? The Constitution is not clear. The Constitution says local government shall participate in the provision of primary and adult education. What does participation mean? Who are the other participants? It means that the states, the federal government, the local government must all work collectively to provide primary education to the people. The second part of it is healthcare, primary healthcare. Who is responsible for the delivery of primary healthcare at the grassroots level? Again, the Constitution is not clear. It says local government shall participate. What does that mean? Right? It means it's a collective responsibility. But who leads? Is it the federal government? Is it the state government? Or is it the local government? Before now, before the judgments, these responsibilities were managed through the JAC, and that is why there is so much opaqueness. You can't hold anybody responsible. Local governments are waiting for the states to take action. State is also waiting for local government to take action. Federal government sees its intervention as a grant. So those kind of lack of clarity and lack of coordination mechanism has created problem for the administration of basic education as well as primary health care. The other part of it is agriculture, and these are the issues that touches on the common man. So with financial autonomy, we now know who Nigerians will be holding accountable for the management of resources. Everybody knows that the questions will be directed now to local government chairmen. The excuse before now that local government chairmen used to give is no longer tenable, right? But however, I'm urging the National Assembly to go back again, leveraging on the current constitutional amendment exercise,
Yes, go ahead. All right, Mr. Mutsu. I like the parts where he was talking. Are you still there? I like the parts where you're talking about how the local government must know that this is now their own responsibility, which of course brought me to my question of when I was asking, are they sure that they know the exact work cut out for them at this moment? So that's what you've been answering to. And
all right, okay, maybe we'll take it back to Mr. Mutsu. Mr. Mutsu, if you're still there, I would like to go back to the real issue of really being autonomous. The good thing this law or this move by the federal government has done is that it has woken up all the state government. Like literally, we have an avalanche of local government elections coming up. In Anambra, for instance, the last 10 years, we understand there has not been an LG election. September, they'll be having an election. But we've seen some elections that have happened. what the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud, calls coronation, not an election. Ebonyi did election. APC won all the seats, all the chairmanship seats, because it's an APC state. Oyo did election. PDP won all the seats. Gombe did election. APC won all the seats. Bauchi just did there recently. PDP won all the seats. Adamawa, PDP won everything. So at the end of the day, there's no way you will say that the governors did not play a role in all of this. So are we just window dressing when it will come to the time of implementation? Oh, dear. Okay, I know that Mr. Mutu may. Let's see whether we can get him back. But and at the end of the day, when we see these elections happen, and you really, because I remember clearly, I think Nyesom Wike, the former governor of Rivers State and the FCT minister, had publicly said a couple of times he bought form for everybody. How many of you bought form? And then we see what is playing out in Rivers State. So when you see this election happen across local government areas in these states that I've listed, there's no way you will tell me that the governors did not wield some influence and all of that to make it happen. So will there really be an autonomy in the long run? That's the question I wanted Mr. Mutu to answer.
Indeed. That was when Kayode was talking about, so maybe some will just willfully say, okay.
We heard that some even did.
So
I think
let's allow you state government.
I stand to be corrected.
It's mind-blowing. And I shudder to think that a lot of people in government don't have that sense of urgency. There are millions of Nigerians who need good governance as far back as 30 years ago.
As far back as independence.
Exactly.
60 years ago, actually.
You know, so you wonder, are we on the same planet? Or are we, in fact, in the same country? Do you see things? You say you represent people. So who are the people you speak to from time to time? Are they the people telling you the reality of things? So when all of this back and forth is happening, I get a sense that these people are sometimes disconnected. Because when you know that your people need good road, as far back as 20 years ago, then, in fact, the moment you get a semblance of opportunity, you swing to work, not trying to say, oh, they'll strip me of power. As a state government, I'm no more as powerful as I ought to be. They want to remove me from power. No, you are there because of the people. So that is my concern, really, that this is dealt with all sense of seriousness, urgency, and responsibility. Because, hey, there are millions of Nigerians that I tell you need that good governance as far back as 60
years ago. When you begin to think about politicians and asking them questions, do you really know that you are there to serve the people?
Right.
This autonomy should actually be a welcome idea when you link it with rural development and linking it to the people who actually need this help. Kayode talked about good road networks. You get to some local you get to some states and it's just the city center that is well put together. And you begin to see rural communities don't even have roads, and they're very angry because at the end of the day, these people come to their towns or their villages to contest, do campaigns, give promises, and then when they get there, they forget them. For as little as potable water, some villages do not even have that. And you begin to wonder, what continent, what century are we in?
Kayode did one brilliant, what do you call it?
The explainers that we always do.
That your explainer was quite brilliant because it helped to break down what the responsibilities are of the local government. So people have said, when it comes to election, no matter how rural the area is, ballot boxes will find themselves. They find, exactly. You will see a ballot, a polling unit. Now, let me break it down for you. There is a House of Assembly member that covers that area. There is a federal lawmaker at the House of Reps that covers that area. There's a senator that covers that area broadly. Region, There's a governor. There are even ministers that come from states that can contribute their own quota. All of these people put together. At the end of the day, you go to these communities and you're asking yourself, is this Nigeria?
I have a proposal, guys.
Yeah, proposal.
It's extreme. So ballot boxes should maybe not get to places that development doesn't get to. So let the votes from those people be removed from the votes of the person currently in power.
I worry. See, me, I think some people have said this, and it looks like it's not a strong conversation, but at the end of the day, it is. If we have local government elections like we're having, and the government in power keeps winning, it's not necessarily a great sign about the democracy we are trying to practice. When you juxtapose it with this aspiration, this bold move to give local government autonomy, because at the end of the day, the man who helps you to win a local government election, you're naturally loyal to that person at the end of the day. So with all of these elections coming up at the local government levels and then being won by the party in power, is really begs the question whether indeed these monies will really, it may get to the account, yes, but what happens to the implementation of those funds? That is a big question.
I hope you consider my proposal. Let their votes be deducted from all of them across board. But I see Mr. Mutu is back.
I understand Mr. Mutu is back. So let's take it to Mr. Mutu. We've just been chit-chatting about this particular one, but maybe your take on the question I asked.
Yes, yeah, if you are hearing me now, and like I said before, reform is an incremental process. You can't change the world overnight, and you cannot also solve the whole problem at once, right? What we have done now is first make sure that the resources get to the right persons, and let there be the necessary accountability mechanisms for us to know who to hold accountable for the management of those resources. Before now, there was a man called Jack, which we don't know who he is. So each time you talk about accountability, you ask the local government chairman, they will tell you it is not them, but it is Jack. So who is Jack? Right now, we now know who we need to deal with is the local government chairman. So all the people in the rural communities know who to hold responsible. And we expect that activities will pick up at the local government level. That is to the extent of management of the resources. There are other accountability mechanisms put in place. The anti-corruption agencies and everybody are currently monitoring the utilization of those resources. So it's not going to be business as usual. That is the first one. Second one is ensuring that only elected officials, no matter how the election is done, only elected officials manage those resources. And once there is an election, you know that the chairman is only responsible to the electorate, as it were. But if he was an appointed official, a sole administrator, his responsibility and accountability is only to the appointer. That is the second part of it. But let's now come to the main issue you have raised, which is the credibility of elections. That is a different ballgame. It's going to be a continual process. Now that we have dealt with the issue of elected officials managing resources, now that we have also dealt with the issue of funding getting to the right persons, the third issue that we expect Nigerians to start engaging is to enhance the election credibility, in all the local governments. And it's not going to happen overnight. After all, INEC didn't become what it is today overnight. It has to be an area where everybody will have to, including the media, including development agencies, the government will have to work with the state government to ensure that we enhance and strengthen the independence of those electoral bodies, so that at least in the next 10 years, we'll start seeing some semblance of what we see at INEC. So you don't just say because you are not sure of their credibility, you throw the baby with the bathwater. No, give them that responsibility and support them to conduct elections in the right manner. I've also seen people asking for that responsibility to be transferred to INEC. That is also another option. But again, it may not also necessarily be the best option. So it's for Nigerians to look at what will work best. If the state government insists that they want the responsibility to conduct the election, then the support should be strengthening that process. If Nigerians feel that no, it should be transferred to an independent body like the National Independent Electoral Committee, that is also a conversation that we should have. Let Nigerians have faith. Let's test a new approach, which is holding those people who have the mandate to manage those resources and ensure that we capacitate them. We give them the necessary wherewithal, we give them the necessary support to be able to deliver services to the rural communities. After all, even at the state level, state governments are still struggling, despite all the support that have been given to them over the years. And it's not going to change overnight. The federal government is also struggling, despite all the support. So it's more or less for us, all of us, to continue to hold public officials accountable, for us to continue to track the effective utilization of those resources to ensure that services are delivered. And I know that in the few years to come, we will all come back here and celebrate that the right decision was taken. And it will also free up the state government the responsibility of now babysitting local government and focus on their own mandate at the state level. I think I will stop here for now.
All right, so Mr. Mutu, you have talked about holding government accountable, but we have seen how that turns out. So to that layman, that person listening right now to you in that rural area who is to hold the local government accountable and everyone working around the local government accountable when they do not see a difference, a positive difference, how would they do? How would they go about it?
There are civil society organizations. There are even town unions, right? The media is part of it. It starts from the publication of the resources. The federal government on a monthly basis is expected to publish how much was allocated to each local government. It also continues from the budgeting process. The citizens need to be involved in the process of local government budgeting to ensure that the budgeting process is inclusive, it is participatory, and it reflects the wishes and aspirations of the people. Councillors who will now be passing the budget of the local governments, who represent the various wards, will have to ensure that they consult with their constituents. The citizens also insist on ask for opportunity to participate in that process. Power is never given freely. The status quo will not change overnight. Insist. And by the time we keep insisting and pushing the boundaries, we'll be able to break the glass ceiling. It's happening at the state level, it's happening at the federal level, and I know that it's going to be more effective at the local government level because it is where the shoe pinches the people the most, and they are going to participate. And we are working closely with other partners to ensure that we mobilize citizens to engage in this process across the country. But I know it's not going to be an easy meet, and we'll need the cooperation of everybody to make sure that that happens.
Almost. Thank you so much, Mr. John Mutu, National Coordinator, Democracy Vanguard, Governance, Public Policy and Development Consultant. Thank you so much. We hope that we also upscale the knowledge base of the officials at the local level now that they need to pass budget to understand all of the technicalities as well.
That's true. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to introduce a young man who's blazing the trail. Join us again.
Well, they say laughter is the language of the soul, and it's the best therapy. Sometimes I wish we had like a medical expert to just tell you everything your body releases when you just laugh. So today on the Morning Brief, we have someone who has been doing that for quite a while. He is Mide Coker, and he is a comedian, he is a host, he is everything in one. And he's here to explain how he works around that and his journey into the art of comedy. Thank you very much for joining us on the Morning Brief. Wow, I saw your bio and I'm like, you do almost everything. How do you even juggle it? And what did you start with in the first place?
Okay, so I started as a dancer in school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I used to dance, break dance, do the hip hop thing. But at a point I sat myself down and I went like, this can't go on forever. I'll get to a point where I can't, I won't be able to move my body anymore. So I just decided to, I was watching I Go Die on, what was it called now? This Night of 1,000 Laughs. And then I saw the way he was doing his thing and I was like, I can do this. Then I started from school. I opened the days where departments are celebrating. I'll just go there and offer myself as a living sacrifice to just crack them up. And then they give me 5 minutes and from there, it started.
So how do you feel when you make jokes and people don't laugh?
It's terrible.
The feeling?
It's terrible. It's like a doctor having an operation in the theater and then it went wrong and then the patient dies. That's how we feel.
Oh.
really bad.
Okay, you're the laugh doctor, and when Anne was saying what kind of hormones are triggered when we laugh, I know that laughter alters neurotransmitters in the body.
True.
Serotonin, endorphins, and no, he's corroborating.
I know.
I'm just trying to answer endorphins. Exactly, those things, and those are feel-good hormones, and basically that helps you to alter stress. It's been said that laughter is one of the things Nigerians need, particularly at this time.
Definitely.
So, are you in high demand right now? Because people should be calling you left, right, and center.
Yes, that's the video that played now. If I don't know if you listened, but then I particularly talk about how people should appreciate comedians.
Yes.
Because the truth is, we are the ones you need in times like this. Yes. So when they call comedians, appreciate them, give them a round of applause, encourage them. Don't just sit down and look as if I said in America, when they call comedians, the people are happy, they are ready to receive you. When you see their faces, it's well lit, and they might not even know you from anywhere, but they are happy to receive you. I said comedy is hard in Nigeria. In Nigeria, when they invite comedians on stage, everybody, I'm also what he go talk.
There's that skepticism, as though they're angry with you.
Even if he's not funny, be happy. It's not because of the problem you're going through. So don't make things hard for comedians.
Amazing. And I reference that because I personally, and I say this a lot, and I'm never tired of saying this, comedians are some of the performers I respect the most. I respect the fact that you're able to, bring content out of everyday life and build a set, tell the story, hit your punchline, and then keep building and still maintain that set. It takes a lot, really. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're happy. So when I say that, is there a lot of patronage right now? I also want to link it to the economic benefits of this. And when you say people should appreciate you, so does that mean that people should pay comedians? I don't know if you people are looking for minimum wage for comedians. Right, so that at least there's a minimum that you cannot collect below, because you're rendering premium service. So I'm trying to talk about the economy of comedy. How well is it paying off, and what are the maybe suggestions, ways that we can help as people and government?
Well, it's paying, because the truth is, when there's a problem, you need a solution. So there's a problem presently. A lot of people are depressed. A lot of people are unhappy, and so who comes to the rescue? A comedian. We have a lot of shows being organized by comedians. I just had my show a week ago at the Necker House. It was tagged job description. So a lot of people came out, and it was a successful show. So we, to some extent, for the minimum wage part, we don't have a minimum wage. We charge you according to your problem. Yes, we charge you according to how old your problem is. So, for the government part, I think a lot needs to be done. If they come in the place of sponsorship, partnership, because we do all these things with our funds, especially for people like us that we don't have that blown name yet. Even the senior colleagues, some of them, they have to, organize all these shows with their funds, and it's not funny.
That brings me to the question of what keeps you going, because in the creative space, it's like you're blessed with something. You want to express that thing. Even though the environment doesn't encourage you, somehow you just find a way to keep going. How do you keep yourself going, even when it's not rewarding?
It's the passion. The passion, the joy, the feedback you get from people when you make them laugh. So you asked me the other time, you said when you tell a joke and it bounces back, the comedians feel really bad. But when you tell a joke and people laugh at it, then you feel good inside of you. That's the joy that comes with it. So the fact that you can say something and people laugh at it gives us joy, and it fuels the passion to keep going.
So let's map your journey. So high points and low points. So my high point means the joke your sketch or whatever it is that you did at that particular place, and that got people they were literally almost on the floor. And then the low point of, what is it doing?
Okay.
Can you walk us back to some of those moments?
That was around 2012, 13. I was telling a joke in church. I was cracking a joke, and I don't know, there was a lady seated in front. she made eye contact with me. The eye contact was that of, what are you even doing? Do you even know what you're doing? And that kind of took me off track, and I just missed everything I was saying, and I felt really bad. You get, so that was like the lowest I've been. So since then, when I'm talking, no matter how large the audience is, you are all one. I don't care who is seated, especially for stand-up comedy shows. I don't look at your face. I'm less bothered about your reactions. What I want to listen to is the feedback from your laughter. So that was... Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
The high point.
The high point was when I got to NYSC Camp 2013. I was opportune to be the best comedian in NYSC Camp, batch C. So Mrs. Fashola was around at the time, and then they called me to perform, and I performed, and the whole camp, you can imagine the whole of Lagos camp, stood up and they were applauding, they were all laughing. I felt so good. I was like the basket mouth in Lagos camp. So yeah.
So okay, before my next question, let's take a look at your arts on stage. I mean, this is you here sitting, so let's see what you actually do in that video that we'll be playing shortly before we come to you again.
Thank you.
Well, the ones where they subtitle well, they got that thing follow for waiting they kill us for this country. You go to watch Nollywood, all those, when I tell those Yoruba actors and actresses, it will be by force to subtitle. As I did like this, I they carry paracetamol, waka up and down. They don't give me a headache. Odunlade tell Madam Shaje, Mommy me, mo fẹ́ lọ sùn. Subtitler, my mom, I want to go and sleep. In Mama, Madam Shaje tell him, oh mommy, go sunre. Subtitler, okay my son, rest in peace. We are tired. Stop giving us nonsense. If wanna just stop him. No, I mean they talk about Yoruba people there.
Well, I liked that we played that part where you were sending a message to Nollywood because of some wrong that they do. We all know about the headache they give sometimes when it comes, but I think it's improved now for some of them. Let them come for me. I'll show them evidence.
Let them come. I'm here.
But anyways, which brings me to my question about, I have seen that you host several events, especially corporate events, where you have key stakeholders attend these corporate events. In that place, in that space, do you ever think about where, for example, you're coming to Channel CV now, and maybe you're to do a comedy show in Channel CV, and your comedy or your talk will be centered around the challenges in communication in media space or something. So is your comedy get towards that kind of thing where you know where you're going and you try in your own little way to send a message to stakeholders who are going to be present there, and maybe that will make a difference in terms of whatever implementation they are doing, especially in this country as we see challenges around at the moment? How does your comedy help in that regard, if it does?
Okay, so that's where the place of reading about where you're going to, doing your background research, knowing their problems, what they need to work on and all. So we try to we try to center the jokes around whatever is going on in the company at the time. You understand? So when we get there, we try as much as possible to try our best and pass the message in a way that doesn't...
Not offensive.
Yes, that doesn't offend the company. So we can get a call back.
And so that you can get your money too.
My balance.
That is not minimum wage money.
Of course.
Far higher than minimum wage.
Definitely.
I don't know if you have a bestseller joke. Musicians have their, platinum, gold, and all
hit record.
The hit record. Do you have something like that you know that anytime, anywhere you drop this joke, it's going to be a hit?
Yeah, I cracked that at the event I was last Sunday, the video that played. It's about the situation of the country and how the fuel scarcity and the increment has really affected comedians, especially me. I use a Toyota Corolla. You understand? And anytime I fuel it before the increment, I fuel it 7,000. I can get anywhere in the country. I can travel anywhere. I can put my AC on for hours and chill in the car while I wait for my event to start. But then, since the increment, even when you buy 40,000 naira, I bought 40,000 naira. The fuel gauge refused to leave yellow. It stayed on yellow. Why? So you can't even put on the AC. You have to communicate with your car before you leave the house. So my car, this is the little I
cannot
come up with. So please, I know I'm going to pass the third mail and preach. Please, I need you to behave. I need you to be yourself, please. But you know the cars now, they will definitely stop you on third mail and preach.
So is it like hardship? And I know this is a tricky one. Is it like hardship is a perfect recipe for getting the best jokes? Because it looks like most of our best comedians have a background of hardship. They tell you, in the slums.
More like poverty is a rite of passage.
I didn't grow up in the slum.
Right. So you came from silver spoon.
No, it was a spoon.
Plastic?
No, not plastic, not silver,
it
no
was
gold.
A spoon.
At least.
My dad was not poor.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, I'm not one of the comedians that will go, my papa poor. My dad was not poor. We were able to eat morning, afternoon, and night.
111.
111. That was all. You understand? So I don't know, but
you shall know poor.
I know poor.
Yeah.
I know poor.
Omo Babalo.
I know poor.
No, he says he wasn't poor, but he wasn't an Omo Babalo. But
it wasn't silver spoon, it was spoon.
All right.
But the silver...
we're working on it.
We're working on it.
All right, but I hope that you'll be able at least to give your own children the gold and the diamond and the platinum spoon as you work hard. And
yes,
all
I'm
of that.
working hard, but the gold, I will try. But may nobody put me under pressure. I will try because my dad tried. Here I am. So I'm trying to. So if you get the gold, fine. If you get the silver, fine. If you get the bronze, thank God.
At least you must get spoon.
At least I can assure you that you get spoon.
All right.
Yes, but don't put me under pressure.
All right. Thank you very much. And we definitely support you. Wish you the very best in your
Thank you so much.
Comedy and hosting of events. All right. We're talking to Mide Koka, comedian of the Federal Republic and, of course, event host and a lot more. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
This is where we will draw the cuttings on today's edition of the Morning Brief. It's been amazing, fantastic. Make sure you laugh as you go around your business today. I'm Anne Wawodu.
All right, take it easy. Get your fuel if you can. If you can't, maybe limit your movement around the country, around the city where you live. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga.
Or whatever spoon you were born with. Whether you weren't born with a spoon at all, that shouldn't define who you are. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Sunrise Daily is next. Stay with us.